We're a living culture. We never died. We never stopped being Anishinaabe.
Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, A Song for Everything, is brought to you by our presenting sponsors, First Source Foundation. The First Source Foundation is a proud sponsor of our community's public television station, WNIT. Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, A Song for Everything, is made possible in part by a grant from Michigan Humanities, an affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Chris and Carmi Murphy. Carmi and I thank the tribe for your engagement throughout your ancestral homeland. Your generosity makes it better. Yours, Chris Murphy. And our platinum level sponsor, University of Notre Dame. And our gold level sponsor, and our silver level sponsors. Thank you.
Ngumwin, Pokaganik, Bodewadmeek.
Ngumwin, Pokaganik, Bodewadmeek.
This was a sketch that George Winter did. He was an Indiana artist in the 1800s. He was known to our people. He extensively documented Potawatomis, Miamis in painting form. And the cool thing about his paintings was they were pretty much historically accurate. He didn't embellish us with more feathers or add tattoos or anything to make us look more exotic. He just kind of painted us how we were. And I think that's what's kind of awesome about this particular sketch, is that you can see that some of them are wearing traditional clothing and some of them are actually just wearing what would be considered street clothing at that time. In his journal about this sketch, he actually talks about how there was actually non-natives that were participating also, which is kind of true of how our powwows are now. You know, pretty much all walks of life are usually welcome to come and watch and participate.
In order to understand our culture, you have to have that knowledge of the language, and the language changes your mindset when you're learning. You see more of how the culture works and how our ancestors thought.
Everything that we have are gifts from our ancestors, our traditional knowledge, our language, our ceremonial doings that they had to do in secret for a long time because it was illegal for them to do so. And so partly it's a responsibility, but the other part is that it's an epistemological framework for resiliency, tackling new problems with our ancestral wisdom, their tools, frameworks, everything from climate change to political issues. And so by honoring the past and those teachings, it makes us resilient to face new problems.
There was coming a time when the community, I think, was at a cat's whisker of losing who we were. You know, the federal recognition is kind of the glue that holds the community together. We were being denied our Indianness by other peoples, non-native and native, because we weren't federally recognized, which was extremely frustrating. And so this professor from Notre Dame talked about another way of having a restoration of our federal recognition, which was to have an act by Congress. So almost 60 years exactly from the time that we'd had our recognition taken away, it was restored to us. And that has meant the rebirth of a nation.
And I wanted to say first, Miigwech, thank you everybody for coming and for listening to me talk, and for the long walk that we have ahead of us today. It's really exciting to see so many people who are non-native come out and listen to Indigenous voices and our stories, and to engage in that meaningful discourse with us in a really good way.
I had a great time this week getting to know all of you and spending time with you, your great group of youth. I did want to remind all of our friends here that we're a tribe and that we're all family and that we should always be supporting each other. So that means saying good things to each other, helping each other out, and just being nice to each other, because again, we're all family.
And I want to remind you all that at your age, right, you are a treasure to this community, as you have so much potential, right? You can bring so much to us, right? But the elders are a treasure to this community because they have done so much, they have seen so much, they have lived so much, loved so much, hurt so much, learned so much. And so when we have a chance to hear our elders speak to us, I really want everybody to see how important that is, because they won't always be there. And while they have the teachings and they're here to teach them and share them with you, I want you all to understand how important that is, and just really, really enjoy that and respect that and take that in.
What does it mean to be Bodewadmi? Well, it means it's how you live your life. And I don't think that meaning will ever change. Learning what you have from your 7 generations behind you, what they have given to you, and giving that back to the 7 generations in the future.
Mishkoswin. Mishkoswin.
It was important from the beginning that the tribe not be viewed from the outside as just a gaming economic opportunity. We weren't just striving to open a casino. I think sometimes the general public views Native American tribes as just a casino tribe. And there's more to it. Obviously, this community has remained in this area in Michigan, Indiana, in the St. Joe River Valley. So it was important to show our community that we live here, we've always been here, we're going to remain here, and we're going to be good neighbors. But also, it is important to build the government and the community. We have currently over 6,000 citizens, which has grown immensely since 1994 in our enrollment. And it is important to try to serve all of our citizens in some way. Development of our housing, where we have locations in not only Dowagiac, but South Bend and Hartford, creating opportunity for safe and decent housing. The access to health care for all of our citizens is so important with all of the health needs, and education opportunities for all citizens, and continuing to preserve the land, preserve our language, preserve our culture, and remain a community. That is so important for this nation, for the future, for the development of our citizens in the next 7 generations.
Chi Ishibak, we are a certified native CDFI, and a CDFI is a community development financial institution. And back in the mid-2000s, when Tribal Council knew that gaming was going to become a reality, they wanted to be, good stewards of some of those resources, and they created, or had Manoba Mazin chartered, to look after the tribe's non-gaming investment, and Chi Ishibak to look after the individual financial needs of our tribal citizens. One of the things that we talk about with our clients at Chi Ishibak is what our ancestors did, who they were, and how they lived their life, and how they celebrated everything from the Creator and Mother Earth. Nothing went to waste. Everything was planned for. They were expert planners. And at some point between then and now, over the last few centuries, I think that's gotten a little bit lost.
It's always stuck with me through my life. When I was a kid, my dad sat on a drum, White Thunder, and so we spent our summers going to powwows. And my dad said to me, you can't preserve a culture. You live a culture or else it's dead. And so in my position here as the cultural sustainability lead, I try to keep that in mind as much as possible, and just remember that everything we do is part of maintaining our culture. And for what we didn't learn when we were growing up, we're relearning and we're teaching each other. And enough was remembered and passed on that it can give us an idea of how to do anything in the right way, in a way that our ancestors could recognize and could say, yeah, that's our culture.
We're doing the honorable thing and carrying on what our ancestors taught us. I believe that those old ways are extremely relevant in modern times. And they, for me personally, and many people that I know in my family and community, they act as a guiding force still in how we navigate this American society that we're living in as Potawatomi people.
I felt like growing up, like there was always a part of me that was missing. There was just something that wasn't connecting, something that wasn't adding up. And it was really my mother that was able to reach out to our tribe and get me and my sister involved. And when we did find out, I remember my first event and my first interaction with my tribe was going to our culture camp. And that was really life-changing for me. It really felt like I was meeting the family that I never knew existed. And it felt like I was coming home, returning home for the very first time.
The first sound in all of creation was the shishiguan, it was the rattle, and that sort of resonates and echoes throughout the world and creation. And after that, it was sort of imitated through nature, and then native people and all sorts of people sort of replicated that, and it helps bring forth that first sound that was musical and melodic. So like a rattle, it was like a heartbeat, and that's what you hear in a lot of our drumming and rattling and in Sweat Lodge ceremony and all of that. That heartbeat is so important.
Song is introduced to us when we're babies in our mother's womb. You hear that heartbeat, boom, 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 boom. Back in the old days, the mothers and the fathers would sing to those babies as they're developing. When we dance out in the powwow and we enter that eastern doorway, it's letting the Creator know, thank you for letting me be alive. You hoop and you holler and you just give your thanks and you shake your tail feathers and you're just so happy and you're just proud to be Anishinaabe, to be following that path.
Well, David was born 1973, and I kind of grew up with him. And I always loved singing. I was a better singer when I was younger, but here I am today. And the lullaby had a couple of syllables in it that Potawatomis don't use, but I didn't know that at the time, and I made this up myself. A good friend, Majel DeMarsh, named it for me, the Topaz Lullaby. I had never named it. And I would sing this to all my babies. It was the first thing I do when they were born. There was a mosquito. And also my grandchildren. I sing it to my grandchildren. I've tried to pass this on to other family members, and I'm kind of glad it's being recorded because that's something that hasn't been done yet. And it goes like this. It starts with vocables, and then we go into what I'm saying in the song is, baby, don't cry. Your daddy's gone. And it's insinuating he's like hunting or he's out, but he'll be back soon. And that's what the song means. Na ihawe, na ihawe, na ihawe, na ihawe. Gego in ma ken, gaga shanane yap, Weepiao. And then I would just rock them and sing it over and over. One time I was help teaching a summer school class language for kids at Zabigon. And it was supposed to be a nap time for them, and I sang that real low, and pretty soon they started getting quiet. Before I knew it, the room was asleep. So, not that my voice is, but you know, that's our family lullaby now.
We had a few of our tribal elders walk on this past year, just recently. Some of the really prominent ones, or really ones that stick out in my mind, was Clarence White. He, when he walked on, he left behind a legacy of knowledge and cultural teachings, ceremonies and doings and things like that.
Clarence White was our spiritual elder. He was an awesome, beautiful human being. He was so humble and so, I'm going to start to cry. He taught us a lot. He has patience of a saint. He always had good things to say. He was a magnet. So when people seen him, there was always a crowd around him because you just wanted to be in his presence because he was such a good person.
And then my father just recently passed away, Roger Williams, known as Kukush or Chinoden. That one is, I can say that my dad definitely left a legacy for myself and my family, because he always shared everything openly. My dad was really good at planting seeds with people, but as long as I can remember, he's always provided or shared openly our ceremonies, our teachings, and how he lived that every day. My dad's one of the few people I know that truly lived that way. One of the things I think we've realized as a people how important it is to document. It's really sad to think about that we missed that opportunity, so we're hoping to not miss anymore.
In 2013, Tribal Council met with the fluent speakers up in Wisconsin to see what they wanted to do, because we didn't have a set language program here or anybody that was a speaker or a teacher. We had community classes where there was things going on but nobody could speak. And so they said send a couple people up here and we'll do a Master Apprentice program. And so Carla Collins and I were sent to go up there originally for 2 years, and it was extended to 4 years, 1 year each time. And so primarily what we did is we worked with Jim Thunder and Mary Jane Thunder. So Jim and Mary Jane were firstborn Potawatomi speakers. That was their first language. And so our language is about 85% verbs. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And as you're learning, you start seeing the world a different way. It's hard to explain until you start to experience it yourself.
We are because we speak that. And the richness that is built into the language is how rich we are. And so, that only became confirmed when Jim Thunder said the same thing. If you do not speak Bodewadmiwen, you cease to be Bodewadmi.
Zobgagon means sprouts, and it has to do with our students growing and developing spiritually and emotionally and physically and academically. In our culture, we have something called the medicine wheel, and part of that medicine wheel is our elders piece, and then the other part is our youth. And so we've been trying to bridge that gap by bringing in elders, having them read as guest readers, and just over the past few years, we've been fortunate to have an elder cultural specialist come on board to the school and be able to get those people into our classrooms, make them comfortable, come eat a meal with the students, and to join us for different events and activities.
In the morning, I greet them when they come in, off of the bus or with their parents, and usually it's Buju, Minowabin, and that's hello, good morning. And then on Mondays, I'll come out and start the fire in the lodge, then they'll sing Miigwech song, and then I'll end it with a traveling song, and they leave the lodge hugging each other or fist bumping or shaking, and then they all go about their day, learning, speaking the language, learning cultural, traditional games and activities. And it's really important that they know that they are an important piece. They're a part of that medicine wheel, connecting the elders with the young ones.
I've had some grandparents want to come to my class of the kids that go to the school, because they want to be able to talk with the kids about what they're saying. And the kids say they want to eat something. Well, they're saying it in Potawatomi, and then the grandparents, they want to know, and they want to keep supporting the kids and talking. And so yeah, it definitely it trickles out from the kids out to the community.
Native Americans across the nation struggle with cultural identity. So having that place, you don't learn that in traditional school systems with the text, with the curriculum. You really have to return home to your community and experience that person to person or as a community. So taking that knowledge system, so many years it's been taken from us. And I'm very happy to say that, with the Pokagon Band going into Zogbigon, having that leadership, having that vision of bringing educational institutions to our traditional homelands is so important, because that's where they're going to get their history, that's where they're going to get their culture, that's where they're going to get their language. And giving that positive cultural reinforcement through that cultural identity will only project into their academic studies when they go to a public school.
Jabuiwin. Jabuiwin.
Federal reaffirmation for our tribe has turned into a milestone in our history that's really worth celebrating, because what it symbolizes is century-long accomplishments of struggles for a community to go after something that they knew was rightfully theirs. And so on September 21st, 1994, that was a great day for all of us. It testified to the resilience of our community and our political savviness and our willpower to continue for the generations into the future.
The 60s happened to Pokagon Band just like it did to the rest of the United States. And for lack of a better term, those baby boomer people within the tribe came back with a sense of activism, or grew up with a sense of activism, and they wanted to reclaim who we were and what it meant to be Potawatomi, what it meant to be Pokagon Band. And so they brought this energy, and they began to go back to the elders, back to their parents and their grandparents, and began to ask them, who are we? What's our culture? What's our history? And beyond just getting that information, they wanted to build something.
There were two events that really sparked sort of a revival, a renaissance for Pokagon Potawatomi people, and those were the Women's Black Ash Basket Co-op, where women began to get together again and share the knowledge about making black ash baskets, which are not unique to the Pokagon Potawatomi or Potawatomi in general, but certainly iconic for us. But they're made by other tribes too. But they really identified, this is what makes us Indian, is this basket. I can hold this. The other thing was the Williams Doherty family and others had really sparked, and many others, had sparked having a Labor Day weekend powwow at the time at St. Patrick's Park in South Bend, Indiana. And that powwow was another sort of public-facing of us as Potawatomi people, and gave us a chance to come together as a community around an event. So those were the two things that really gave us sustenance.
This tree's been with us for forever and provided for us all the things that we needed. From strips like this, we can make baskets. And then with the log, with the bark, we can peel that off and we'll use it in our homes for the coverings. The saplings we'll use to bend over to make the dome structure.
An art form which I think is the paramount or the quintessential Potawatomi art form. When you take one of these black ash baskets, it is a very site-specific type of art form, because in other places where Potawatomi people live, say Kansas or Oklahoma, where these trees don't grow, then they're not able to continue that art form. Now, over the years, many of them have come back to the Great Lakes, and we still share in that way with each other.
And we also understood that we needed to bring people back in, because without a land base, you just slowly get spread out. So we needed to bring people back in together again.
My favorite part about the powwow is to see the community come together with all the young ones and our elders, and all of the teachings that are being shared within the dance arena and with the drums. And it's just a sense of gathering, and you can really feel the positivity. There's never a lot of any negativity happening, and there's so much being taught back and forth, from the dance styles to the way that you behave and the way that you respect your elders. And it's just this all-encompassing gathering of good feelings.
The greatest honor that we get is when they call Grand Entry. And at Grand Entry, we open the powwow. What we do when we go around, we're all given tobacco. We do all 4 gates. We do the main gate coming in. The songs that the drums play it's all part of it. And the head veteran leads us out. Eagle Staffs lead it, and then our Waukegan flag, and then U.S. flag, and then all the service flags and the POW flag. And Ogitchida is really an Ojibwe word, but our languages are pretty close together. It means big heart, basically, what it translates to, because the community recognizes that's what it takes for us to do what we got to do. I think that's what has made us great warriors. Also, we always extend an invitation to any other patriotic veteran organization. Hey, come on out, bring your people. We don't care if they're Native American or not, because we feel that we owe a debt to them for fighting for our country and our land, because that's always going to be our perspective.
Again, it's baked into every indigenous cultural aspect that I've been a part of. There is no powwow without the Grand Entry, without the drums. It's again, everything is wrapped up in itself. So you can't have Potawatomi without language. You can't have language without song. You can't have songs without Potawatomi. So it's all wrapped up in each other.
There's this weird like catch-22. Like, you don't want to be so wrapped up in the past that you don't evolve. So you got to be able to change a little bit, because there's a certain point where if you're too traditional, you're almost reenacting, and you're not really representing what the culture is now. And so what I try to do is take those traditions and adapt them, to what life is now. And if you don't evolve or change, you die, then you're no longer who you are.
Beadwork is meaningful to me because it's part of the
what I hope to pass on to my children, both in terms of the practice, but also reclaiming familial designs in the beadwork or designs made by specific families. Because a lot of our artwork, whether we're talking about beadwork or applique, belong to a people, a place, a time, and sometimes they are clan specific with stories attached, sometimes they're family specific. And we've lost so much that now we're in a site of resurgence. And so I'm hoping that some of the stories I tell with my beadwork will, carry on to future generations.
I just really fell in love with the whole process then. But what I like most about it now is that it's creating something with materials from the earth that when it's finished will outlive me and everybody that comes after me. And that's, I really love that part of making. I really think that I'm able to make utilitarian things. We all get to do that you can use in everyday life, and you can add more and more design elements to it as you go. And I put a lot of symbolism on the personal pieces that I make, the more designer pieces that I make, because it's meaningful, and I think people really enjoy it in their everyday life. So, and that's what I encourage everybody that I teach to do too.
Art has always been a huge part of my life since I was a child. Copper came to me right about the time that I found the tribe, found my people, and that was in 2014. And it's just it's intensifying as time goes by. I've always loved copper. It's very malleable. I like the colors and the way you can play with it. And recently found out that it was important to the Anishinaabe people. And I also found out that they have been mining copper in northern Michigan, or northern America, for like 6,000 years. And that's a significant thing to me, because I'm still learning about the culture. I'm new to it.
I feel like for our artists, a lot of people in our tribe are trying to reconnect, to bring back traditions. And I feel like when we work with nature, with our clans, when we learn about our clans and what it means, when we learn about what the foliage means, what the fruits and vegetables meant to our people that we can then use in representation in our artwork today, it opens up a whole lot of storytelling that we can then leave for our children and keep those traditions growing.
Some of us just went up north of Petoskey and learned cattail mat making from an elder up there named Wasan. And now we're harvesting these cattail leaves to make cattail mats to cover our lodges, because we've been covering our lodges with tarps for years, and we want to get back to covering our lodges with natural old materials.
Today I did I call it like a pan fried hominy with duck oil. Today we have a duck egg. Then we also have butternut squash with some maple syrup and creamy Amish butter and salmon.
I got into the indigenous food movement because I was interested in these diets, and it was a very big thing around here. We all were getting back to our indigenous seeds, because each tribe, especially the Potawatomis, and I was told that the reason that we're in this area is because, especially the Kankakee Marsh area, is because this is the Garden of Eden.
It feels very special, you could say, because I'm representing two things at once. I'm representing the Navajo Nation, and I'm also representing the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi. So it adds more, yes, it adds a bit more weight, but I'm one of the people that never really took the step into learning my language. So I'm one of the examples of, the language dying out.
We're transitioning into a new period where we're using technology like Mango Languages to drive language learning apps. and to be able to project the sound of our Bodewan Mimuin through technology devices that everyone has readily available. And a large part of that is normalization of our sound. You know, hearing it when you get an answering machine at one of the government employees' phones. Bonjour, you know, thank you for calling, or miigwech. Just any way that we can put the sound out there that sounds natural. You know, that's the purpose. We try to do that just so everyone can hear, you know, what we're talking about.
We have a card night because there's a social aspect to learning language too, where you start to care about your fellow classmates and your lives start to come entangled, I guess. I don't know if entangled is the right word, but so you have these social nights where you use a little language, but it's the camaraderie that makes you care about each other, and then you want to push each other to learn more.
Having a department dedicated to culture, to history, to language is vital for our nation, and if we can teach and restore that language and the heritage that some missed out or don't have the opportunity because family members have walked on, they can turn to the tribe, and this is where they can come to restore that language.
Ejab Matsiak. Ejab Matsiak.
One of those most pivotal things that we accepted and embraced into our community was Catholicism. And it's even one of our legacies, because through embracing that form of faith, you know, that was essentially what helped secure Leopold Pokagon's ability to negotiate for him and his group of Potawatomi to stay in the area, because of how much we embraced that assimilation process. And because of that, a lot of our old ways, our original ways of prayer, had to be set aside and taken underground.
I'm Pastor Casey of Good Medicine Way of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It started back in 1988 when I got my call to ministry, that I felt the Lord speaking to me that the way ministry was being done was really denying us our cultural identity completely. And it was like we had to leave who we were culturally outside the church doors when we entered those doors. And what I came to find out many years later is that's what assimilation was meant to do to us. And when I got into my teens, I felt that something could be different and that I could get involved in doing something different. We're able to design a ministry that reflects a Native American, kind of a pan-tribal expression of how we can live out a Christian worship within our Native American culture.
I follow the way that our original people followed, the path that was set before us, those generations before us, and keeping that tradition going. And that's the path that I'm on. Pretty much most Anishinaabe people follow that way, whether they call it Mdewan or not.
And if anything, our community is a reflection that there's no one path, there's no one right way to maintain your sovereignty. As long as the community is at the core of your decisions, having faith in Mama Gosnan that it'll work out in the end. And that's what those old ones in my community did back then, and this is what we have now.
As a council person or a tribal leader, what am I going to do that will benefit the future generations? And my thoughts are, they revolve around survivability. I believe the best thing that we can do within our tribal lands is to provide clean, drinkable water, have edible fish and game, plentiful fish and game, breathable air is within our powers. Because without that, what else matters?
Water is life. Water is everything. Without it, we have no life. And so part of the Shoreline project that I was involved in, it was really examining Indigenous people and our relationships to water. And what I noticed, Western society kind of treats water like it's a commodity that's meant to be traded and sold for profit or to provide entertainment to them. And it's sold to the highest bidder, and there's very little regard for the harm that that's doing to the water and everything that resides within that water and everybody who relies on that water for life. And so if we're going to be taking so much from her, we have to give back to her as well.
The water ceremony is, women normally do that. When we do that, and it is our job to care for the water because we are life givers. So when we carry those babies, we have that water within us. So it is our job to care for it. We sing for it. And we put the water in a copper vessel, they call it, because that comes from that comes from Mother Earth. That metal does, and it's pure. And the things that are in that copper nourish your body. So they'll tell you to drink out of copper, and to honor that, and to honor the water, and to say thank you for that every day.
Maujishnowen. Maujishnowen.
There are 9 Potawatomi tribes that get together, and the gathering rotates to each nation, and the host tribe puts on a 3-day celebration for all of the Potawatomi, and more recently the Indigenous people of Canada have joined. There's a language workshop that is attached prior to the actual gathering event, and they come together and work on language and teachings.
The North American Indigenous Games is comprised of athletes in, I believe, 16 different sports across Turtle Island, which is the United States, Canada. And I believe this year it was about 5,000 athletes. Team Michigan is a basketball team. They played at the 19U level at the North American Indigenous Games. It's comprised of tribal youth from 5 different tribes within the state of Michigan. If you look at the logo, you can see the C, the P, and the O, and that stands for Chippewa, Potawatomi, and Ottawa, or Odawa, however you say it. And then the symbol around it represents the fire. So the team slogan was 5 tribes, 1 team, 3 fires, 1 dream, and then we would yell, "Let's go, Michigan."
I don't think they realized how huge this was actually going to be until they actually got into the stadium and they realized how many people were actually there and how exciting it was going to be. I do know that they were looking forward to playing more, obviously, but I think they did. They did their absolute best.
The opening ceremonies, and you see Josh and Devin enter into the arena, and their contagious smile that just lights up while they're looking up and seeing everybody in the stands and seeing themselves on the big screen. Just something that I don't think that they really put into perspective that they would ever experience something like that. So it was similar to kind of how we have the Potawatomi gathering, There's all kinds of like different vendors for like arts and crafts. They had food vendors. They had like teachings. They had different teaching lodges that you could go into and play games and learn how to make things. They also had performances by Indigenous artists, musical artists every night.
It was just a good opportunity. We got to see everybody that came out and just put on for our culture.
Yeah, like I know we only have 12 guys, so like every other team's pretty much bigger than us, but we tried to stay loud and keep the people entertained and stuff, so it was fun.
Yeah, and we had a way bigger crowd than we thought. Our Michigan really showed up for us.
Our boys are now leaders, and they need to continue to be leaders for our Pokagon citizens. Just the fact that they had that opportunity, they need to bring it back, they need to share it with the kids.
Every Native American has a gift, and how they choose to give back to the community. I think that's the message that we need to fulfill, is being able to encourage them.
Gigadowin. Gigadowin.
I have two family members that have walked on due to some violent acts that were initiated against them. Initially, it was started out as the MMIW, which is the Missing Murdered Indigenous Women. But over time, it has evolved to change into the now MMIP, which is Missing Murdered Indigenous People, because we recognize and we understand that it's not specific to just one gender. The MMIW has given me a voice. And if I am one person to one voice, that's great, but you find that all you have to do is speak, and you'll find many, many women, children, the LGBT community, even men. It isn't specific to anyone. Violence is violence is violence. And the more we bring awareness to this, the better off we're all going to be.
So advocacy to me looks like just being in control of our own narrative. I don't think it should be up to anybody else to be telling the world about who we are or what our motivations are or about our history. That should be up to us as Indigenous people. And so, you know, really at any space where decisions are being made in this country, there should be an Indigenous person at that table. And if there's not, it's just colonization all over again.
It isn't a hobby. It's not a mascot. It's not a cartoon. I think people just kind of have this warped image of what being Native American is, or what it should look like stereotypically.
The Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990 was established to provide a mechanism for tribes to have their ancestors and their belongings returned back to the community. And institutions that live in a federal nexus, that are associated with the federal government, are required by law to comply with NAGPRA of 1990. And the primary goal is to return the ancestors and their belongings back to the womb of Mother Earth, where they belong and where they were removed from. Because this is one of the most important efforts that we have as tribal communities today, because there are elders that are directly related, you're talking grandparents, that are in these institutions right now. And they're living in this mind space of despair. And so to provide that emotional, spiritual healing for the community, we need to have our ancestors back home in the ground where we can protect them and make sure that everybody is able to continue their journey through that western door.
The historical significance of South Bend to the Pokagon Band, also known as Ribbon Town to our tribe, cannot be understated. We have called this land home for hundreds of years.
So South Bend, Indiana became known as Ribbon Town, and that's because that was where a lot of the traders would end up because of the easy access to all the different pathways that led into the area, the different rivers and water routes that led to the south bend of the St. Joe River, is what led a lot of those fur traders there, which obviously they were there because the Potawatomi and Miami were there. But with them came a lot of European goods, a lot of European materials. One of those European goods that the old Anishinaabes really liked was ribbon. It's shiny, you can do all types of things with it. In a lot of communities I know that ribbons took on like ceremonial uses. And so ribbons became an important element of our culture, of how we decorated ourselves, of even how we prayed. And that is an example of not only our resilience, but the vitality of who we are.
This moccasin is made with one piece. So it's not multiple, like a boot moccasin, or has a separate sole. It's just a solid piece, which is kind of characteristic of moccasins. Most moccasins are multiple different pieces that are sewn together. So it really does, to me, gives a throwback of a much older style of sewing and stuff, and it really shows a lack of waste. Like there's just no waste when we use this one style, because we're not trimming anything, we're using as many pieces as we can cut off of the hide. There aren't any laces and stuff to this moccasin. And the puckers are a little bit identifying, like everyone's like kind of thinking how they want theirs to. Like she wants hers more gathered, and I thought it looked a little bit good, a little less gathered. This is a real gathered one. That I think might just be an individual preference, because you do have an individual identity in just your clothes and in everything you wear, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of individual identity even in a moccasin that is a certain tribe's moccasin.
I'm teaching finger weaving. Some of our ancestors used this for finger weaving as part of clothing to hold up their pants, tie their arms and their leg bands. And today the woodland dancers are bringing them back and using them in their regalia. Somebody needs to carry these things on. Somebody needs to remember it.
I think it's really unique that we're all able to be here together and learn these things and bring Candy in and Madeline and whoever the presenters are to share their knowledge and for the whole community to learn. And then people here can teach their kids, even if their kids aren't here today, and then if they really get into it, it could be just a life skill that they have, and then maybe they can come in and present it someday, and just to keep it going and keep the learning going.
So whereas some of our other brother and sister tribes have found themselves in other areas of this continent, with us still being engaged with this land, I think it's our greatest teacher and our greatest nurturer.
It was never perfect, but I think in a larger sense, I think America was forced to accept us more than if we were isolated. I think we were forced to accept America more than if we had been isolated. So I think in some senses, I think that might have helped us be healthier over the years, just literally healthier, better able to feed our families. But working with language, the places where we go for our language now, we go to Kansas and we go to Wisconsin for our language. Because they were insulated. And so they were able to keep their traditions, their culture, their language. They were able to keep it much stronger than we were. So, the other thing, we're on our homeland. We're home. And You know, so we gave up a lot in order to stay at home. We did. There was a decision. It was a decision, and we gave up a lot to stay here. You know, but what we gained, you know, we gained all of, you know, we're able to keep all of this. You know, we've had people come from the Western bands, and they do exactly what I'm doing. They tear up when they see tall trees. So it's good and bad.
They say your children are the message you send into the future. We have a strong future ahead of us.
I've never belonged anywhere in my life. So to find home, finally, means everything to me.
I'm most proud, not just being able to say I'm tribal, say it in public, but I'm most proud of being able to stand up for my grandmother. Who wasn't in a position, or felt she wasn't in a position to be herself. So that's what I'm most proud of.
And so what I'm seeing now is my generation and the younger generations are starting to embrace our culture in ways that our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors were not allowed to. And so there's that reconnecting to our culture and that embracing of the culture. And really just, we have this understanding that these things are our birthright, and no matter what happens, they can't be taken from us.
Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, A Song for Everything, is brought to you by our presenting sponsors, First Source Foundation. The First Source Foundation is a proud sponsor of our community's public television station, WNIT. Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, A Song for Everything, is made possible in part by a grant from Michigan Humanities, an affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Chris and Carmi Murphy. Carmi and I thank the tribe for your engagement throughout your ancestral homeland. Your generosity makes it better. Yours, Chris Murphy. And our platinum level sponsor, University of Notre Dame. And our gold level sponsor, and our silver level sponsors. Additional funding for Pokagon Band of Potawatomi, A Song for Everything, has been provided by Thank you.
This WNIT local production has been made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.